Everybody, and welcome to our week number 6 live stream for my research methods class. I see a bunch of you here in the chat and kind of joining me. So thank you and welcome. I hope everyone is doing well and hanging in there, enjoying this beautiful weather. It's like all nice and cool outside. I love it. So what I want to do today, of course, like usual, I want to go over some stuff from last week, just kind of give you a little bit of feedback from last week's materials. And then we will talk about what we have going on this week, which includes homework assignment number 2. And I'll go through that and make sure you're feeling good about it. I will, of course, give you the extra credit question and then see if you have any questions for me. So that is our plan for the day. Can everyone hear me and see me okay? Is everything coming through fine on your end? Just to double check before I keep going here. Wait 1 second if someone could let me know in the chat. Thank you, Sarah. Yes, okay, great. Love it. Thank you, thank you. So let's go ahead and go over to Canvas together. And if we scroll down, we are right here in week number 6. I don't know about you, but I can't believe we're already in week 6. It feels like this semester is just kind of flying by, which is wild that we're already here and it's the end of September. It's crazy, right? So let's go back for a minute though before we talk about this week and just take a quick look at last week's materials. Last week we started getting into kind of some deeper, more kind of core topics for this class. And so I want to just take a quick look at discussion number 5 with you and kind of share some thoughts. So I hope you enjoyed reading the article about how screens are ruining your family's lives. Most of you did a good job with this discussion, but I want to talk for a minute really here about number 2. And so I saw a lot of wonderful summaries. I saw a lot of great job looking at different examples of terms that need to be defined or third variable kind of stuff. But where some of you got a little bit tripped up is on what kind of claim the author is making versus what kind of claim they are allowed to make given what they did in their article. So the author is definitely making a causal claim. They're saying that screens are ruining your family's life, that one causes the other, that watching too much time on screens is going to ruin your family's life. But if you look at whether or not their claim is accurate or justified, they didn't actually manipulate anything in their study. They were just looking at naturally existing relationships between a couple of different things. And so if they don't deliberately manipulate anything or set anything up, and they're simply just measuring those variables, that means that all that they can make is an association claim, that those two things are associated with each other. So I was looking to see that you could identify that the author was making a causal claim. They were inferring cause, but they did not have the ability to do that because they didn't actually do an experiment and manipulate anything. All they did was measure. Sorry, I feel like I'm going to sneeze. We'll see. I'll move on. I knew it was coming. Excuse me. All they did was measure what was like naturally there. So a lot of you kind of got tripped up on that. I would say about half of you. So if you identified that, Pat, thank you. Pat yourself on the back. Right, it's a little tricky, but that was a big focus of last week, was on correlation versus causation. If you only measure and you don't manipulate, you cannot determine cause. Experiments will allow us to determine cause, and we'll get there, but they only did a correlation. So I just wanted to talk about that for just a moment because it did trip up some of you. Otherwise, again, really nicely done. I appreciate your feedback and your honesty in the self-assessment. A lot of you did the extra credit question, which I think is fantastic. So we move on to week number 6 this week and part 2 of chapter 3. So as I mentioned last week, I broke it up because I think they do have kind of slightly different focuses And it's a very important chapter, so I want to make sure that you have the time to digest that and understand it. So let's look at what you have to focus on this week. So this week we're looking at kind of the other half of this, right? So how are frequency claims evaluated, association and causal claims, and how are they evaluated, right? So we're looking at how we can look at those and what kind of validities are most relevant for each type of claim. So make sure you read through the little summary or listen to it. On the Beyond the Book page, a little bit more about correlation versus experiments. We start getting into the idea of like independent and dependent variables. And so that's something that I spent a little bit of time going into here. And then talking about the 4 big validities: internal, external, construct, and statistical. We're not super worried about statistical for our class because we're not going into statistics, but it is the 4th one, so it is included in there. But there's a lot of content this week. So again, make sure that you're really like taking the time to understand it. These ideas, these 4 big validities and independent and dependent variables, will be very present for the rest of the semester. So very important to make sure that you spend the time to understand them now so that you don't fall a little bit behind later. On the last page here are all the key terms that you need to know for this week for Chapter 3, Part 2. So make sure you know all of those. You can always start studying them as you go along. That way you're doing a little bit at a time if that helps you. So make sure you read through all of that, listen to that. Of course, you'll also want to watch my lecture video that I have with the PowerPoint slides and take notes. That's going to help you with understanding the content. And then once you've done those things, you can move to discussion number 6. So read the chapter, read the lecture, watch the lecture video, like always. And then as usual, here is discussion 6. You can see my instructions up here at the top. And then with this one, you're looking at 2 different studies. So I have 2 very brief little studies here for you. And then you're going to answer the 3 questions that follow each one. So you'll read this little study about Dr. Stevens and her research assistants. And then you'll decide, is this correlational or experimental? If it's a correlational study, what kind of correlation is present? Is it a positive, negative, or 0 correlation? If it's an experiment, what is the independent variable and the dependent variable? So you're going to identify the components of it. So if it's correlational, what kind? And describe that. And if it's an experiment, what are the independent and dependent variables? And then from this study, can we conclude that income causes an increase in self-esteem? Why or why not? Then you'll do the same thing down here. You'll read this little study about kombucha. Is this a correlational study or experiment? If it's correlational, what type? Between the variables, is it positive, negative, or 0? If it's an experiment, what is the independent and dependent variable? And then from this study, can we conclude that kombucha causes better recall? Why or why not? So this is going to give you an opportunity to practice a little bit more. Is it a correlation versus is it an experiment? And then starting to identify either the type of correlation or the variables that are involved. And a couple of things, again, ask yourself, did they just measure or did they manipulate the variables? That's going to help you. And with the independent and dependent variable, I shared this with you in the lecture. But if you ask yourself, what is the effect of the independent variable on the dependent variable? And then you kind of fill in what happened in the study. Sometimes that's a little bit helpful. What is the effect of X on Y? And X is always going to be that independent variable, and then Y will be the dependent variable. It's dependent on what happens with the independent variable. Okay, so your discussion for this week is very much connected to those topics that we're covering in the lecture and in the book. And then the homework assignment is going to build on that. So this is your second homework assignment. It is worth 25 points. So you're going to want to spend some time making sure that you take the effort and time on this. And let's take a look at it together. Let's look at what you need to do and kind of the different components of it. So as again, 25 points, you're going to be uploading your document right here. So you'll hit start assignment and you'll upload that. You can do doc, docx, PDF, and RTF. So remember, you can't do Google, like a Google Drive link or Pages or anything like that. And this is due Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. So the point of this homework assignment is to help you practice determining those different types of validities. And then identifying independent and dependent variables and their levels or operational definitions. So it should be like roughly a page or two typed, standard margins, standard font for APA style. Make sure you number and label your responses. Make it really easy for me to see what you're answering. Like, don't make me wonder what you're answering. If you can make it really clear, that's going to help. On the following page down below here, you're going to find 5 questions that I want you to answer related to the different types of validities or identifying independent and dependent variables and their levels. So you're going to read each of the little scenarios and then answer them and describe. And again, this is due by Sunday night. Oops, sorry, the date is wrong there. That's obnoxious. Let's change that really quickly just so I don't confuse any of you. Sunday is the 24th. 2/19, right? It's due in February. Oh man. Okay, so where did it go? Here we go. So it is 9/24 that it is due. Sorry about that. I always try and catch those, but I have so many little things. Sometimes I miss them every now and then. So it's due by this Sunday night. And so here are your questions, right? So question 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So question 1, you're looking at different types of validities. And then questions 2 through 5, you're looking at independent and dependent variables and their levels and how they're being operationalized. So for question 1, you're going to read this little short scenario below and then name and explain which type of validity each doctor is addressing in their questions. And as a hint, each doctor is addressing a different type. So Dr. Lopez and his colleagues, Dr. Jefferson and Dr. Shaw, are discussing the following headline. Playing video games leads to an increase in growth mindset in college students. They have some concerns, right? So Dr. Lopez has concerns, Dr. Shaw has concerns, and Dr. Jefferson has concerns. So for each doctor, I want you to tell me which of the 4 validities they're looking at and why. And that's number 1. For numbers 2 through 5, you're going to identify the independent variable and then its levels. So if you have an independent variable, what are the different conditions or levels of that independent variable? And then what is the dependent variable and how are we operationalizing or measuring that? So for example, let me see if I can think of an example here. If we were trying to study what is the effect of alcohol consumption on exam scores, the independent variable would be alcohol consumption. And then maybe I have 2 groups, one group that drinks alcohol and one that doesn't. Those would be the levels or conditions. And then the dependent variable would be the exam scores, which I'm measuring by giving out a test. So I want you to identify each of those components for numbers 2, 3, 4, and 5. And this is going to be really good opportunity for you to practice identifying independent and dependent variables and like their different conditions and levels, and then looking at those different types of validities. So those are the big things for this week. I'm sorry, I'm clicking on things randomly here. For week number 6, sorry, it kicked me out. Let's go all the way back down. Make sure you read chapter 3, part 2 in the textbook, read through the lecture, watch the lecture video, complete discussion number 6, and then homework assignment number 2. And I will post a recording of this right here a little bit later once we've finished and I've uploaded it and downloaded it. And then I will, of course, give you that extra credit question in a moment here. Are there any questions at all for me? I do have a couple of reminders for you, and then I can see if you have any questions for me. While I'm waiting for you, I'm going to give you my reminders. A lot of you, so I had like close to like 40 people who are subscribed, which is still really, really low given how many students I had. But I had about 40 and I'm down to about 6. So if you could please take a moment sometime today or tomorrow this week to renew your subscription. Or if you haven't figured that out, you could do that for the first time. It saves me so much time. I can't tell you how much time it takes to go through and try and track everybody. So thank you for those of you who've done that. I really appreciate it. And if you haven't, it's still not too late. We have a lot of weeks left in the semester. Our second reminder, and I will put this here in the chat. Our next Twitch live stream will be on Wednesday, September 27th at 12:30 p.m. Okay, so that will be our live stream for next week, which is week number 7. It will be on Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. So I hope that you are here to join me for that. As we move into week number 7, I'll give you some feedback about the homework and we'll talk about what we have going on next week. The last thing that I have for you is to give you the extra credit question. So let me copy and put that in the chat for you. So this is the week number 6 Twitch extra credit question. So for this one, what I want you to do is, what are the big four big validities? List and define all 4 of them. So what are the 4 big validities that we're covering this week? List them and define each one of them. Just a good opportunity to review these as they are on the homework and the discussion this week, and you will see them the rest of the semester all the way through. So that is where you will be looking at for this. And then when you're ready, you'll go back to Canvas. And since we're in week 6, you'll click on optional Twitch extra credit number 6 right here. And then up at the top, oops, sorry, not in student view. Let me go back to that really quickly. You'll click on start assignment up at the top, and that will bring up the text box where you can type your response and hit submit. And then you get your little confetti burst and hopefully 2 points and some little flames with happy faces. This is due by Sunday night. So if you answer this early in the week, I do grade them throughout the week and can let you know so you can try again. But a lot of you have been doing these. I think it's fantastic. If you are watching this later, remember you can still answer this as long as you are subscribed. So I hope this is a good opportunity for you to get a couple of extra points. And again, I will be posting the recording of this a little later today as soon as it finishes uploading and downloading. So I think that is everything I have for you. About 20 minutes or so in, I will of course hang out for a little bit here if you have any questions for me. Otherwise, make sure you get going on this week's materials. I hope you're all having a really good week and hanging in there as we kind of hit, like a third of the way through the semester at this point. So hang in there. I hope you're doing well. Have a wonderful week and a wonderful rest of your day. I'm going to minimize my video, but I will hang out for a little bit if you do have any questions for me. Otherwise, I will hope to see you all next week for our week number 7 live stream. Thank you as well. Thank you so much for being on here. You as well. Have a wonderful week. Wonderful day, wonderful week. Thank you, Sarah. Bye. Have a good week. You as well. Take care. Thank you. I am still here. If any of you think of any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them, and I'm right here.